that people and families and professionals give to communication with each other. Julio, I think you're an expert in this field. So I'd like you to just say what you think the key elements for a good communication for people that are involved in this journey. And what are the critical moments? Some people have mentioned them today. Those moments when it's so important to have this communication. Thank you so much. Thanks for inviting me. I'm going to tell you about a very old technological tool. It's called human communication. And although this is something that can be supported through new technologies, it's actually the key part of this, the key tool is the person that's going to apply this communication, this means of communication. We've had to actually deal with people that are dying over the phone. But if the communication's already there, even if it's distance communication, you can accompany people properly. But everything lies in training and the preparing of people, of professionals in communication. Well, I wanted to say that when we talk about communication in the world of health, we need to differentiate between information and communication. Our communication isn't to inform people of things, but to communicate with people. So we need to remove this idea that the relationship that we have is just to inform people about diagnoses, about treatments, things that people can do. No, we're communicating with people. We're not informing about things. Another thing that I actually talk to trainee doctors about is that any kind of confrontation, if there's no welcome, is an aggression. If another person, we confront them, we put them in front of reality. If we haven't spent a little minimum amount of time to explain the situation, they're going to feel attacked, even though that's not what the professional is trying to do. They're not trying to attack anybody either. We invest time. It doesn't need to be a long time, but time to receive that person as a human being. It might well be saying, you can't just say to a person, look, your dad's dying when you've just met them. No, you need to look at the person, say, how long have you been looking after your father? Are you tired? I'd like to have better news for you. Your dad is reaching the end of his days. That's a different way of saying things. Just the initial sentences that show that you've got an interest in that person's situation, that gets across to the person that's listening to you, that for you, that person is important for you. And that's how you create a tie. So always remember the axiom that I always put in many, many hospitals. For those of us that work within a hospital, any sort of speech, any sort of confrontation that you have without initial communication is going to feel as aggression. So what do you need to communicate? You need empathy. Everybody knows what empathy. If I ask trainee doctors what empathy is, they always say it means putting yourself in the other person's shoes. That means without putting them in their shoes, without using your place, because then you're not empathizing, you're sympathizing, and then we've got problems. And then getting to know to the other person what you've understood when you put them in your shoes. Because you could be sensitive towards the fact that that other person's shoes are too tight, but it's not just sensitive, it's empathy as well. You need to explain what you think. So then you need to be genuine, because if we say something different to what we think or feel, people are going to notice. People notice that the challenge that we have is being genuine, authentic, and not trying to be what we're not. You can tell that in politicians. You hear sometimes them saying some very, very nice words, but the music doesn't quite accompany them. But the same goes for patients. They don't like our music. They know what we're saying, but they don't like the music that goes with it. And thirdly, we're going to have to deal with people that may have completely different values to ours. They may have a different view of life. They may be at the opposite pole of what we think. They may have done something different, but it's not our job to judge what they've done in their life. This is a person that's fragile, that needs to be looked after. how can I go beyond my initial judgment and concentrate just on the person? Not what that person does, but the human being that they are. And there are three skills for that. Listen, active listening. It's not, those dogs with a mobile head that you see on people's car windows. No, just nod at everything. You have to really genuinely be interested in the person's lives. Presence, and I don't mean just being present in body, but in being present in mind. Are you here? Are you really present in what you're doing? And validation. The validation is another strategy, the communication strategy. Who am I to say that that person shouldn't be angry, or, we judge feelings on many occasions, but you can't judge feelings because I don't decide what I feel. I don't decide, fall in love. I don't decide whether I'm going to guide. I don't decide where I get involved. I don't decide to feel fear. They're just emotions that mushroom up. So we need to see that those emotions are there, but still accompanying them. What about for final moments to use these skills and these tools? Firstly, in the process of the patient's journey, first of all, to tell them about their diagnosis, because that person, after knowing that diagnosis, becomes a different person. They're no longer a normal, in inverted commas, person, but they're a person who's got a death threat hanging over them. It may well be, even if the doctor says that I may well be cured, they're still under threat. So that's why we need to be clear that everything is in informing isn't an end of itself. How much information, how do you relay that information so that it be an additional tool to the therapeutic plan? You want to give clear information. You want to listen to that person's response, in their physical response, their emotional response, because information at that time is like a dance. You need to be very, very careful about that person's emotions. And then the relapses, when diseases have a crisis, they can get worse. These are really, really important to start planning their care and the decisions, because there are times when you can start talking about the evolution of disease. What sort of values are there? What desires are there? Where does that person want to head? Where would they like the process to go? Another important place in this journey is when curative treatment ends, when all the treatments come to the end, when the doctor says, well, we've got as far as we can do therapeutically, because of course that person may well have diabetes and their kidneys start failing, or because chemotherapy is more harmful than beneficial. So when you get to that moment, that's when we need to reassess goals, guarantee that you're never going to leave that person, control physical, social, spiritual symptoms, because that's when feelings start beginning. People start thinking, oh, why does this happen to me? What's the point of all this? That's where all the spiritual dimension is. And then another key moment is the end of that person's life, whether that person should be sedated, the support for their family, and something that we sometimes forget, and that is really, really important at any kind of protocol when we're talking about persons' end of their lives, is the prevention of a painful memory, so that death isn't just a matter of grief, but it's also has trauma added to it. The sounds, the visits, the look, everything. This can be a tender, thankful experience, but it can be a traumatic experience. If we're traumatized, we're not grieving. We're traumatized and we're not grieving in a normal way. The keys that I feel important in this journey. Thank you so much.